This happened to my family in the summer of 2012. My dad had just gotten promoted at work, and to celebrate, he rented a secluded log cabin in northern Pennsylvania, deep in the Allegheny National Forest. It was supposed to be a peaceful week-long getaway, just my parents, my younger brother Jake, and me. The cabin was listed online as Rustic Charm, Ultimate Escape. But when we pulled up the gravel road to find it, the air felt wrong. The GPS had cut out about 30 minutes before, and we had to follow an old faded map the owner emailed us. There were no other cabins nearby, just dense forest in every direction and a single telephone pole with rusted wires stretching into the trees. The cabin itself looked older than in the photos. The wooden boards were cracked and darkened, like it had soaked in rain and time for decades. Inside, it was musty and cold despite the summer heat. My mom joked that it smelled like ghosts. None of us laughed. That night, as we sat by the fireplace playing cards, we heard something knock on the wall. Not the door, the wall behind us. My dad jumped up and went outside with a flashlight, thinking maybe an animal had bumped into the cabin. But there was nothing, just the sound of leaves rustling in the dark. He brushed it off. We went to bed around midnight. Jake and I shared a room with bunk beds. I was on top. Around 3 a.m. I woke up freezing. The window across from the bed was wide open, and I could have sworn we had locked it. And that's when I saw it. A tall shadow was standing just beyond the tree line, not moving, just watching. The only reason I could even see it was because of the faint moonlight slipping through the trees. I whispered Jake's name. No answer. I leaned down from the top bunk to wake him and nearly fell out of bed when I saw his side was D. Then I heard a creak from down the hallway. Jake was outside the room. That's when the real horror began. My heart was pounding. Jake never sleepwalked. He was a light sleeper, always scared of the dark. Something wasn't right. I climbed down quietly and crept toward the open door of our room. The hallway was pitch black, except for a faint light coming from the kitchen. I could barely make out the creaky floorboards in front of me. Each step felt like it echoed. Then I heard the back door open, slowly, and close again. I tiptoed into the kitchen and saw that the screen door was unlatched, swinging gently in the night breeze. My parents' bedroom was shut, but there was no light under the door. They hadn't heard a thing. I stepped outside onto the back porch, calling Jake's name as softly as I could. Jake? No answer. That's when I saw his small figure standing at the edge of the forest, maybe 20 feet away. He wasn't moving, just staring into the trees. I ran toward him. As I got closer, I realized he was mumbling something under his breath. I couldn't make out the words. It didn't even sound like English. Jake, what the hell are you doing out here? He slowly turned to me, his eyes wide and glassy, like he was in a trance. He looked straight through me. Then, from behind the trees, I heard a branch snap. I turned, thinking it was just a deer or something. But then I saw it again, the shadow, tall, maybe 6.5 feet, just standing there between two trees. But this time I could make out more detail. It was wearing something, a long coat or cloak, and its head looked wrong, almost too narrow, not human. I grabbed Jake's arm and he resisted for a second, then suddenly blinked like he'd snapped out of it. He looked up at me and whispered, "Don't let him take me." I didn't ask. I just ran, dragging him behind me. We bolted back into the cabin, slammed the door shut, and locked every window and entrance we could find. My parents woke up finally, confused and half asleep. We tried to explain what had happened, but they chalked it up to a nightmare or Jake sleepwalking. But here's the thing, Jake remembered everything. And he said the shadow man whispered to him, said he used to live in the cabin, and that Jake had a strong soul. That night, we all slept in the same room. But the real terror was still coming. The next morning, we tried to act normal. My parents made pancakes. Jake barely touched his food. He kept looking at the tree line through the window like he expected that thing to still be there. My dad finally decided we were going to cut the trip short. "It's too remote anyway," he said, trying to make it sound like a casual decision, but we all knew the real reason. We packed quickly, but when we went outside, we saw something that froze us all. Footprints. Not ours. Barefoot. Huge. Deep imprints in the dirt just beyond the porch, like someone had stood there for hours watching the cabin. They led from the woods to the house, then circled the entire cabin. No animal could have made them. We left within the hour. But the horror didn't end there. 2 nights after we got home, Jake screamed in his sleep. I ran to his room and he was sitting straight up, sweating, eyes wide open. He said the man was back, that he had seen him in the corner of the room, watching. At first I thought maybe it was trauma or a night terror, until I saw the marks. 3 deep scratches ran across Jake's back, perfectly straight, evenly spaced, like claw marks, but not from an animal. It looked almost surgical. We took him to the ER. The doctors had no explanation. They said maybe he scratched himself in his sleep, but they looked too clean, too deliberate. Jake swore he hadn't touched his back. That night I stayed awake in my room, watching the hallway. I kept a bat under my bed just in case. At around 2:30 a.m. I heard whispering, low. Male, not my dad. I crept to Jake's room. He was asleep, but the whispering was coming from outside his window. I looked through the blinds. There he was, the tall man, standing in the yard, closer this time. I could see his face, pale, stretched, with eyes like hollow pits. He raised his hand and pointed straight at me. Then he disappeared, like mist. We moved 2 weeks later. Jake never had another incident, but we never spoke about the cabin again, not until now. This happened in 2017, when my family was driving through West Virginia on our way to a cousin's wedding in Kentucky. We'd been on the road for over 8 hours, and Google Maps rerouted us due to traffic. It suggested a shortcut off the highway through a mountain pass. My dad, being the kind of guy who trusts GPS more than common sense, agreed. That's how we ended up on a narrow 2-lane road winding deep into the Appalachian Mountains. No streetlights, no signs, just thick trees pressing in from both sides and the occasional rusted mailbox that looked like it hadn't seen mail in years. After about 30 minutes of winding roads, we passed an old wooden sign that simply said, Pine Hollow Tunnel, use at your own risk. My mom laughed nervously, but Dad said, probably just a warning for trucks. 10 minutes later, we saw it. A long, crumbling tunnel carved into the side of the mountain. There were no lights, and it looked like something straight out of a horror film. Moss growing on the stone, chunks of concrete missing, and graffiti all over the entrance. The weirdest part? There were chains hanging from the top of the tunnel, like someone had tried to block the entrance at some point but gave up. We hesitated. My dad flashed the high beams, and the inside of the tunnel seemed to stretch forever. But then the GPS said, continue through tunnel for 1.2 miles. So we drove in. At first, it was just dark and eerie. We rolled up the windows and turned off the music. You could hear the echo of the tires on the cracked concrete. Then the signal dropped. No GPS, no cell reception. About halfway through, our headlights flickered. My dad cursed under his breath. The engine sputtered like it might die. Then Jake, my younger brother, sitting next to me, pointed out the window and whispered, "Who's that?" We all turned. There was a man walking along the side of the tunnel. No flashlight, no phone, just a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat. We passed him slowly and my mom rolled her window up immediately. "Must have broken down," Dad muttered, but he was gripping the steering wheel way too tight. We kept driving. And then, less than 30 seconds later, we saw him again. The same man, same coat, same hat, walking toward us. But that was impossible. There was no way he could have looped around. That's when my dad stopped the car, and the tunnel lights, if you could even call them that, shut off completely. We were in total blackness. Then came the knock on my window. The knock was slow, deliberate, like someone wanted me to know they were there. I froze, staring into the dark glass, trying to see out, but the tunnel was pitch black now. No moonlight, no tunnel lights, not even the glow of our headlights, which had completely died. Then the second knock came, louder this time. Not just on my window, but on the other side too. 2 knocks, 2 windows. "Dad, start the car. Start the damn car!" I yelled. He tried. The engine wouldn't even turn over. No clicking, no cranking, just dead silence. Mom grabbed her phone, still no signal. Then Jake started crying. He pointed toward the front windshield and whispered, "He's in front of the car." I looked. There he was. The same man we had passed, same wide-brimmed hat, long coat, pale face just barely visible in the dark. But this time he was smiling, slowly raising a hand as if he was waving. Then he turned his head sideways, unnaturally far, and pointed behind us. That's when we realized there was a second man, standing just behind the car. Same coat, same hat, same sickly pale face. Identical. Not twins, copies. Nope, Dad muttered, slamming the gear into reverse, praying the car would respond. By some miracle the engine coughed once, then roared back to life. Headlights flickered on, blinding us all for a second. The men were gone. Dad slammed the gas. We shot backward down the tunnel, tires screeching, the entire car shaking. We didn't stop until we hit the edge of the entrance and spun back onto the mountain road. The second we exited the tunnel, all our phones buzzed back to life. GPS returned, bars came back. We sat in silence for a full minute. Then Mom, pale as a ghost, said, "Check the back window." I turned. Handprints. 5 of them, all facing inward, on the inside of the glass. No one said a word for the rest of the drive. Later that night, when we looked up Pine Hollow Tunnel, we found nothing. No history, no location on maps. It was like it never existed. But we remember. All of us. This story happened in 2021, right after the lockdowns were easing up. My family decided to take a weekend trip to the countryside in upstate New York, just something peaceful and quiet. My mom found an old farmhouse listed on Airbnb. It was cheap, had a 5-star rating, and the photos made it look like something out of a cozy Hallmark movie. We booked it. When we arrived, the house looked older than in the pictures. Not run down, just lived in. Like someone's grandma had just stepped out for groceries and left everything as it was. Floral wallpaper peeling at the edges, faint smell of cinnamon. Family portraits still hanging in the hallway. But there was one thing that immediately gave me a weird feeling. The basement door. It was locked with 3 deadbolts and a heavy latch. And duct tape over the edges. Someone had scrawled the words, "Do not open," on the wood in faded black marker. My dad joked that it must have been just for insurance reasons. But I noticed my mom didn't laugh. That night, after we settled in, I started going through the Airbnb reviews, just out of boredom. Most of them were positive, until I found one from 2 years ago that said, "Nice place, clean, quiet, but don't go near the basement." We heard someone whispering from behind the door at 3 a.m. Thought it was just a prank, until the doorknob turned on its own. I showed my parents. My mom wanted to leave. Dad insisted we stay just one night. That was a mistake. Around 2:47 a.m. I woke up to the sound of something moving. Not footsteps exactly, more like scraping, like something was being dragged across the wood floor. I sat up in bed and listened harder. It stopped. Then it came again. Scrape, drag, scrape, drag, coming from downstairs, from the basement. I slowly crept out of bed, heart pounding, and walked to the hallway. That's when I heard it. Whispers. Soft, like 2 people having a conversation. But there was only one voice. And it was coming from behind the basement door. I leaned in to listen, and the doorknob jiggled. Then it slowly began to turn. The doorknob turned slowly, like someone on the other side didn't want to be heard. My breath caught in my throat. I backed up, one step, then another. Eyes fixed on that olden door with "Do not open" warning scribbled on it. Then from the other side I heard it. A voice. Not whispering now, it was singing. Off-key. Childlike. A soft, eerie melody, round and round the basement floor. Someone's been here once before. I froze. It sounded like a woman, but not quite human. There was something wrong in the tone, like someone imitating a voice, not actually using their own. The doorknob stopped turning. Then 3 knocks. Hard, slow, right in the center of the door. I ran back upstairs and shook my parents awake. My dad, groggy and annoyed, grabbed a flashlight and headed down. My mom told me to stay in the room with my younger sister and keep the door locked. We sat in silence, waiting. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then we heard my dad yell from downstairs, "It's open!" My mom ran out of the room before I could stop her. I followed behind. When we got to the hallway, we saw it. The basement door was wide open, and Dad was standing just outside it, shining his flashlight into the darkness below. The stairs creaked, but nothing moved. Then he said something that chilled me. "There's furniture down there, like someone lives here." He stepped down onto the first stair. That's when the light flickered and shut off completely. "Go!" my mom screamed. She pulled Dad back just in time, because something was coming up the stairs. We didn't wait to see what. We grabbed our bags, left half our stuff behind, and ran out into the night. Slept in the car at a gas station. We reported the listing to Airbnb. A week later, it was taken down. No explanation. To this day, my dad won't talk about what he saw in that basement, but I swear. As we were driving away that night, I looked back at the house, just for a second, and in the upstairs window I saw a woman's face, but we'd already left the lights off, and no one was inside.